Hey YouTube! So, today I want to talk about family stuff when it comes to the pagan and the Yule and the Christmas and the Hanukkah or whatever else possibly is coming up for people with their family. Especially because when you find paganism, it probably isn't all that likely that you have a family who's pagan. If you did, that's kind of awesome in its own right to have someone whose beliefs at least somewhat align with what you're doing. That could be such a great thing. But I bet a lot of people like me are going to either have people who are kind of along the same lines ish, or people who kind of look at you like, that's nice that you do that, but that has nothing to do with why I'd celebrate and put up the pretty things at this time of year. And I had a lot of considerations when thinking about this, because on the one hand, there is the excitement that I feel with finding out about the history of a lot of these traditions and where they come from and what is pulled into them and what isn't. And then there's also the whole aspect of, talking about the facts of the matter. A lot of these things were from pagan, of different folk traditions from around, and bringing that up, and that's kind of really cool. But then it can also teeter into me suddenly critiquing everything about Christianity or religion and really pressing my viewpoints on it. And I realized this when my family, my immediate family, is not really all that religious in any way, sense, or form in the organized sense. All of them are kind of spiritually minded, but some explore more than others. My mother and me have really great spiritual conversations. But I noticed that I was really, really excited and kind of talking about in my research for this string of videos, and also kind of just being excited about. I was like, oh, that's from pagan, and that's pagan, and that's pagan. And my mother finally at one point turns to my father and says, you do realize that's all we're going to hear this year is, did you know that was pagan? Did you know that was pagan? Did you know that was pagan? And we kind of laughed at the time, and I was like, yeah, no, I am really excited. I am talking about it a lot. And then my mom, we were all talking about our favorite different carols and stuff, and I love Carol of the Bells is probably my favorite holiday time song. And so my mom goes, well, bells, that's not pagan. I was like, I think it is. And then me and her both researched it. She's like, God damn it, it is. It is pagan. You're right about everything. And I was like, yes, I am. No, not really. But I had to kind of check myself, though, and go for a second of do I really want to be the person who is constantly telling everybody, oh, you know about that, oh, do you know about that, oh, you know about that, the history of that. Some of it's really fun, but other times you expressing something that you were so excited about, it can come off a lot of times like you're a bit of a know-it-all, or that you are kind of encroaching on someone else's beliefs and faith. And I would never want to encroach on someone's spirituality if they've kind of taken this piece of it, no matter, because it was taken, but them taking this piece of it, it doesn't necessarily harm me in any sense of form. They call theirs a Christmas tree while mine's a Yule tree. There's not really, for me, any harm that I see in it, and I don't want to necessarily become this lecturing little pagan that everyone's like, yeah, we can't really talk to Sam about anything holiday anymore because all she wants to talk about is all the pagan spirituality stuff. So I was thinking about this, especially if you're coming into a family or you are meeting relatives that are in any way, shape, or form really devout in their beliefs, you rediscovering yours and finding the belief and the excitement in celebrating your traditions or creating your own traditions or coming up with those things doesn't have to encroach on someone else's just because you found something new and you're all emboldened. You're like, they stole from this or they did this or blah, 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 but don't turn it into a hate onto this other thing. That other religion, other spirituality is totally someone else's business. And as long as they're not lecturing you about your stuff, there's no reason to call them out for theirs. And even then, I don't know if it's necessarily great to be swinging the flag all the big time saying you stole all our shit. It's great among us to all talk about it. Hey, let's talk about this history. Hey, let's talk about and look into these things. Because it's good for people, especially who are like, oh, I never knew that. That's so fascinating. But I am definitely trying to be a little more conscientious now of how I interact with family members of mine who aren't necessarily of the same belief set. And there's some great things that you can kind of do privately to yourself, and just because you aren't screaming it from the rooftops to everyone you know and celebrate with doesn't necessarily mean that it's invalidated or wrong in any way, shape, or form, So that's one thing I was thinking too, for anyone out there who's way in the broom closet and is like, I can't sit here and call it a Yule tree or get certain things out and do a whole ritual around this time of the year. My family expects me to go to church, or my family expects me to always call it Christmas this or Christmas that, even if for me it's not Christmas. If you're really in the closet, there are still tons of things that you can do and still celebrate with your family, or spending some time with yourself, buying yourself a gift, and make it a Yule gift, I guess. That's something that you can totally do, and it doesn't take away from it. You don't have to kind of like drag everyone else into your thing or put your thing onto everybody else. My family and I are going to be, specifically me and my father, are going to be making a Yule log cake, because that's something we used to do. It was, I believe, an old, where did it come from? I will have to look this up, where exactly the Yule log cake making came from. My grandparents, my dad's side, are Italian, but one of them moved from Italy to France, and then she came in through New Orleans. It was all very confusing. So it might be a French thing too, I'm not entirely sure. But like, that's a thing where it's like, for him, it's an old thing that he used to do with his grandmother, my great-grandmother, and it was rooted in like European Christian-centric stuff. Where for me, it's definitely more of going back to the old pagan. It's a representation of the Yule log and all of those meanings that come along with that. That's where it's coming from me. So he can have his representation of it, and I can have my representation of it. We're still making the same damn cake, and we can both like just be happy with that and enjoy it and do that thing. And I don't have to make him believe that this is a pagan thing now and that we are doing a pagan thing. Like, it has to be pagan for him too, for it to matter, you know? And that's just something I wanted to kind of put out there too, since I noticed that I was kind of just getting real on my family about, look at all the cool things. And it maybe was kind of getting rubbed the wrong way a little bit with some of their comments that I was noticing. And so I just want to pose that question to you guys too. Is there something that you do that, have you noticed yourself, especially new witches who are in like an accepting environment, have you noticed yourself being like, that's pagan, that's pagan, that's pagan, why don't you know that that's pagan? And feeling the need to lecture everybody about the true history of all these things? Or, you know, is there things that you do that are like really help you to kind of do the, yeah, I'm still celebrating my family with this holiday themed time, but they don't need to know the exercise spiritual aspect that it holds for me at the time? Or is there something where you and your family have kind of compromised and done this cool little like, together, this is a fun thing we do, but for me it means this, and for you it means this, and that's totally fine, and that's cool. Anyway, this is part of 12 days till Yule, so I will see you guys tomorrow. If you like these videos, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want more, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.